I could handle like the pants shitting if he was actually a good president and had a good personality or some shit. But the fact that he's got the worst personality, is an awful president, and is still shitting himself, and MAGA is still kissing his ass.
What's up, Doom Scroll Club fam? Cody's chugging a drink on the side. uh, it is America's 250th birthday yesterday. So in celebration, we're doing all of the things. We're chugging some beers. We're, saying some really heinous remarks and isolating people and everything else that. No, I'm just kidding. No, we are here talking about we're going to be talking about the 250th celebration of the United States of America, how we feel about that, and what our current administration has done to celebrate. But before we jump into all of that fun stuff, Cody, how have you been doing?
Been doing all right. I know. I think we skipped a week or two since the last podcast. Uh, busy. Not much as I mean. Go back and watch the last episode. I guess. Just trying to get my life together. I think just been busy dealing with burnout and trying to navigate life. On this, still on a bit of a health journey mystery, trying to figure out like what the fuck's wrong with me besides the obvious. But yeah. How about you?
About the same. I think, burnout is such a misunderstood topic. And I think people judge it pretty harshly, but it is hard once you've hit that level. It is hard to get back into coordinate. I mean, I remember before COVID, I had so many things I was doing all at once, besides a, full-time job. I was in two different bands. I was playing sports, all these different things. And now it's like, I feel like I don't have any time to even do one extra thing. So it's definitely hard. Um, but other than that, things are going good, working hard and, just, life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last weekend I was working in Southern California filming a project, and so that's why we ended up not filming last week. And then this week, obviously yesterday was 4th of July, so had, family stuff to do, and today I've been kind of trying to do all the house chores to prepare for the next week, and it's also my mom's birthday, so having her over this evening and gonna make dinner for her. So it's been busy.
Oh, well, that is very sweet of you, making dinner for your mom and all that.
Got to make Peasley tacos. So
Ooh, Peasley tacos. What are those?
it is a family tradition that sounds disgusting, but is actually super delicious. It's basically tacos with um, ground beef, but I'm going to be using ground turkey, pork and beans, pickles, cheese, and either sour cream or ranch.
Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds different. I don't know that it sounds awful because I could see how those could work together.
Mhm.
But I've also eaten some weird combinations because bodybuilding prep just kind of forces you to make some weird
Get
combinations.
creative.
But you're hitting all the things of that. There's lots of flavor there,
Yeah,
so
it's
I
kind
won't
of
knock
like a
it.
hamburger in a burrito, sort of, but it basically comes from when my grandparents were kids. Well, especially my grandma. Um, I think she was one of 11 kids, and they were like super poor, living in a shack, didn't have any money, and so like they would just find whatever they could find in their pantries and throw it together and make meals. And Peasley tacos came out of that, and it's been kind of a staple in the family ever since.
That's a lot of that's how those traditions are kind of born due to like lack of funds or whatever.
Hmm.
And so you just make do with what you have and then it becomes this thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that. And I, it's funny, speaking of traditions, you know, 4th of July, it, that's something I feel like for the past, especially a couple years, I've struggled with how to feel about it.
Yeah.
Uh, so you mentioned celebrating or being with family, and I feel like it's almost like Christmas, even though you don't believe in Jesus or whatever. Like a lot of people, who aren't religious still celebrate Christmas because it's about like giving and stuff like that. Uh, 4th of July. So like I kind of have this belief that it's okay to still, love your country and want what's best for it and like celebrate the good times you've had, and not still be super stoked about the direction that it's going. But I know I feel this sense of I did not want to celebrate. We didn't do anything. We worked a farmer's market, but that's what we do on weekends anyways. But even if we were not super tired, I just, didn't really feel like it was one we're celebrating. There's a shit ton of chaos, but how do you feel about it?
There's a multiple levels. I'm my wife and I are both come from Indigenous descent, and so there is that aspect of like 4th of July has always been kind of a hot topic of like, you grow up in society where, you're taught, one thing about America. You're kind of instilled with that, patriotism, especially for, us who grew up in like the 9/11, time, as those were part of our development years, right? So um I remember a time, on my dad's side, because I would usually go and stay with him for the summers, and it was like every 4th of July, like we went to Old Navy and we would get our, our American flag T-shirt, and like would barbecue or go camping or whatever. But it wasn't really like I don't know. It's just always been like just a holiday where people are barbecuing and setting off fireworks. It never was really like, let's sit and think about our, feelings about America type thing. And then
Yeah.
you get older and it's like, oh, well, yeah, you want to, be proud of the country that you live in, and there's definitely certain aspects, but it's hard too when you acknowledge like the fact of like how America came to be and the people who were who were here before and what happened to them and how they were treated and how they're still treated today, as well as everyone else that, you think of, like slavery and minorities. And then and even today you see, you know uh people who immigrated here, the way they're being treated. And it's hard to really have respect for your country. It's one thing. I don't know. It's just hard. Like my mother-in-law just bought a house and had a pool, so she just, they had a little pool party type thing, but it wasn't like we're not celebrating 4th of July. It was just, this is an excuse for us to all get together and, whatever. So I think that's like kind of how my family and my wife's family has always taken it. It's not like, it's the same as Thanksgiving. We don't have Thanksgiving, and we're not thinking about the pilgrims and like all that. We're just like, oh, this
Yeah.
is just a holiday and an excuse for us to be together, but we're not really celebrating that. So it's interesting. And I do know I have people on my wife's side of the family and people on my side on my dad's side of the family who are that, like, waving Trump flags and, like very, very over patriotic, or, or MAGA or whatever. And they see it a different way. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
definitely. I feel like, you kind of have to create your own definition of what it means to you, or focusing on the aspects that you are grateful for. Of course, eh, there's always going to be those people that try to be like, you live in the best country in the world. Like, look what it has afforded you. Look what it's given you. And it's just like, not denying that I feel like privileged to live here, and especially in California, and to have been born here and all that stuff. And I know we have a lot more than some of the other countries. Uh, but there's also a lot of shit that is not great and feels like it's regressing. And that's the part, like, it's okay to not be okay with what is happening in your country. And I feel like the MAGA part of it is like, if you even have like anything negative to say about the country, then get the fuck out. I was just like, well, first of all, it's really expensive to do so. So that's not an option. Uh,
We would if we could.
but exactly. The people who tell you, like, if you don't like it, get out, they have never looked into how expensive it actually is to get out of this country. But we also wouldn't want to leave if we didn't feel like things were not headed in the right direction. There's a lot of shit that is scary and is something that, I've never thought would occur. And like, here we are. Uh, but then there's also a lot of people with their head in the mud who nothing affects them, so they don't care, or they think that if you disagree with things, then you're just crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or they're just naive. Well, that's never going to happen. Why are
yeah,
you worried
or
about
like,
it? And then it happens.
yeah, or it's just like, oh, it'll be fine, it'll work its way out, or like, I've lived through X, Y, Z, and everything was fine. And it's just like, if you think about it too, America is 250 years old, but it is still a pretty young country. And every country has had its like falling, essentially. So you kind of think like, does every country experience this? And is this our turn? Kind of scary to think about. I try not to think about it too much. So it's definitely one of those things you think about when you're like sitting in bed at night and you can't sleep, or maybe you had a little too much cannabis and you get a little paranoid. And then you're just like, oh no, like, what's going to happen? How about certain rights going to be taken away? And you'll have people on the right being like, what rights have you lost? What rights are being taken away? And you can't really sit down and be like, this, and this, and this, but it's like the intent, right? We have this uh, loud group of people who would love to take rights away. It's just the fact that it has to go through a bunch of steps before it can happen, but it's not like they're not actively trying. Um, but yeah, it's. I also feel like the MAGA movement kind of what's it called? Stole patriotism, or they like took over the symbolism or of the flag. Like, whenever I see, so like, I go to I work farmers markets every week,
Mm,
and it's hard not to think that, like, when you see someone wearing like something patriotic or an American flag, usually that symbolizes who they voted for.
yeah.
And it kind of sucks because back in the day, the American flag just meant it was the American flag.
Hmm.
It did not mean left, right, MAGA, Republican, Democrat, whatever. Uh, so like, I kind of hope we can take that back, just like, we took back the word queer, or,
Hmm.
like, things like, it's weird that we've gotten to that point, but it's truly, you would not catch anyone. Like, if you walk down the street, 4th of July or any other day, and you saw someone wearing a shirt that had an American flag on it, who would you think that they voted for? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely difficult too, because I feel like America is like one of the only countries, or just one of the countries that is really good at propagandizing and kind of pushing their history under the rug. I mean, you look at Germany, who, obviously World War II, one of the most horrific things that have happened. But they are very like avid in teaching since that war ended, basically, you know, the truth in the history and what they did wrong, and so like you talk to Germans today or go over there and like they're ashamed of what happened. They don't, agree. And I feel like we've done, I don't want to say we, but the, Americans history has done such violent and horrific things that, it just gets, kind of shoved under the rug and kind of glossed over, and so, we celebrate, George Washington. We celebrate, all of these great leaders, but like they were slave owners, they treated their slaves like shit, a lot of them like raped, their female slaves and had illegitimate children, which they also then made slaves, like there's that. And then you have, like, I don't know, even Christopher Columbus, who obviously is an American, but we idolize him so much, but he was a horrific person, and he did horrific things, but all of that gets glossed over, and it's hard. Like how do you as a nation and as people, how do you grow and become better people if you don't acknowledge the mistakes you've made, you know?
Yeah, and not to mention, while a group of people are actively trying to promote making America great
Uh-huh.
again, kind of assuming that it used to be great. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, what time frame are you talking about? Are you talking about when slavery was still legal? Are you what part is it that you want to return to? Because why don't we just make America great? Try not to take anyone's rights away. Try to remember our history and all the bullshit that comes with it. Because if we try to forget, then we're going to end up in a situation where we either repeat it or worse. And I think I've told this story before, but when I was in Germany touring a concentration camp, one of the Americans, because like these concentration camps were in places that you would think someone would know about, right? So some American was like, how did people not know about this? Why didn't anyone do anything? It's like you can ask the same fucking question right now in the US. You want to know how no one did anything or no one knew about it? Look at what is happening right now in the US. There's so much that it's even if we're aware of it, you feel kind of helpless and you're like, I
Hmm.
don't know what I can do, but also I don't know what I can do because I feel like there's a different type of slavery where you can't stop for a second because you're trying to keep a roof over your head. You're trying to keep food
Hmm.
in your plate. Everything is expensive. You can hardly take a day to, get out and like protest or whatever if you wanted to.
Hmm.
Um, so it's like everyone is burned out, everyone is tired, no one can afford things. So to add something else negative onto the plate, it really creates this numbness or this, complacency where you just hope that it gets better or that someone else does something about it because you don't have the energy. And I feel like that's how shit's probably got going back in the day, maybe different circumstances because it was a long time ago. Uh, but I feel like that's how it works, They just start throwing a bunch of shit at you till you're exhausted and all you can think about is surviving
Hmm.
yourself. So when you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about anything else. You're just focused on whatever it is so you can stay alive. Or in America, stay from becoming homeless. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But speaking of not being able to afford anything, so part of the 4th of July celebration, uh, you know, Trump put on the Great American State Fair. And all week I was seeing videos where it showed nobody was
Hmm.
in attendance. It was very minimal. I did see more people yesterday because it was the actual 4th of July, but there was also some pretty crazy weather,
Yep.
heat wave storms that kind of had people evacuate. And I know Trump gave a speech, but I didn't get a chance to even watch any clips of it. I don't know if there were any clips of it. I didn't run into any on Twitter, but I haven't really been on it very much. So yeah, do you know how that all turned out? What's your
I
take
don't
on
know
that?
about what happened yesterday. I do know that the pretty much before yesterday, it was pretty empty. Um, I know Trump was boasting that there was like 45,000 plus people there, on the kickoff day, because I think he either did or was supposed to give a speech on the first day of the fair as well. And there was like no one there. Like you said, there's videos of like the whole Capitol Mall thing is just empty. There's like no one at any of the vendors, and yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
great.
And to think about like how much money was spent to put this thing
Yeah.
together. I know that he had his like supposed, it was like basically a mock-up of the arch that he wants to put in over there, but it was this piece of shit that
Yeah. Already started
looked awful.
deteriorating after the first day. Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, I got these new lights, by the way. They just start flashing, so we're gonna turn those off for now. Uh, anywho, but yeah, spend a bunch of money. Just like also, I saw that he lied about the ballroom not being funded by taxpayer
Hmm.
dollars. Then he spent all that money for the reflection pool,
Hmm.
and it's coming apart.
Yep.
And he's blaming it on the left, and even arrested some people uh, for like vandalizing it. One of them was like a previous Olympian. He was just
Hmm.
bending down and like pulled off a piece of the uh, reflection pool that was already coming apart. And now like they're trying to sentence him to 10 years in prison or jail, whatever. And to think that this is the same motherfucker that pardoned January Sixers wants to put some guy in jail for 10 years for pulling off a piece of the reflection pool that was already falling apart. And this just shows to me that we cannot elect narcissists as a president, and there should be some sort of mental test, psychological evaluation before someone can actually take office. And I know they supposedly have some things, but there's nothing to test specifically for a narcissistic personality disorder. And there's no way that you can be a good leader. I mean, there's leaders have a lot of narcissistic traits. I feel like they just do. But to have textbook NPD is should be a no-go, because
Yeah.
someone who's a leader needs to be able to have at least a slither of empathy, or else they don't give a fuck. And this is exactly what we're seeing. He's just getting rich off the presidency. Um, corruption with insider trading, and like I forget, I didn't see how much he's made so far,
I think it
but
was
he
2
has
billion
made,
this last year.
yeah, like just this last year only,
Hmm. Yeah.
that he's made just off the presidency. And you got people that are like, oh, but he doesn't take a salary. And it's just like, come on. Big fucking deal. He just made $2 billion or some shit.
He even
So
had a recent interview. I can't remember who he was talking with, but I just saw this last week. But he had a recent interview where he's talking about like his kids and how basically they get insider information, and he just talks about it bluntly. And it's like, really? I mean, we have a guy who has no accountability,
right.
unfortunately.
No. And I think that's the dangerous part, and that's the scary part. And that's the part that like I feel like MAGA or Republicans or people who are maybe just too afraid to admit that they don't like Trump, uh, is that it's not that, leftists, well, most are not just like crazy and hate Trump to hate Trump. Uh, it's because he's seriously, he's just a fucking wrecking ball, and he's corrupt and only cares about himself. Um, that's a fact. His character has always been awful. We have always known this. And you can't elect someone like that no matter what they say. Like, when has he ever had truth come out of his mouth to begin with? I don't know where I'm going with this. My brain is fried. But basically, I'm just kind of like, eh, I'm tired of people making excuses for him. And it's like, you don't lose your Republican card if you don't agree with what is going on, right? You, it's just like an ego thing because you voted for this guy. You can't admit that you don't like what he's doing or what he's doing is wrong or that he's an asshole or one of those things. Uh, and it's like, it's okay. People make mistakes, but you're just going to keep making those mistakes if you can't put your ego aside and be like, oh, shit, maybe I shouldn't have voted this guy into office. I don't
I
know.
mean, I just don't know how anyone can watch him talk and not realize that he's not competent enough to be running a country. He just did I can't remember her name, but JD Vance's wife, like she has some podcast, and
Sit,
he was
Usha, whatever.
it's Usher or Asha or something like that, and I didn't want to say it wrong, but uh Trump was on a recent episode, and he's just supposed to be reading a children's book, and he couldn't even get through the first page. He reads the name of the thing, and he starts going off on a tyrant. He's like, when I was a kid, we had Run Spot Run. Have you read Run Spot Run? And he's like going off on this, like, it's just insane. Like, how can you look at this man and be like, yep, that's who I want, and having all the nuclear codes, handling the economy, like he can't even fucking read a children's book without going on a tyrant. Like it's insane.
It really is. And have you ever seen those reels where they put they basically get rid of the image of Trump and they just have someone else taking his actual words and they whether it's AI or whatever, and they have someone else speaking that way and it sounds fucking insane. But the fact that it's Trump and we've just accepted that's how he is, it's become so normal. And anyone else that spoke the way he does would never fly. And, you know, it, I'm going to say it straight up too, Biden definitely was not there, especially towards the
Towards the
end.
end, yeah.
And that shouldn't have been okay. But here's the
But none of
thing.
us were like, Biden, we got to keep going. We were just like, we need
No.
someone else. We need someone else. Someone, please give us someone else. Like Biden had best
Yeah.
intentions, but he obviously was not competent to be. He shouldn't have run again, but he shouldn't have probably ran in the first place. Like he was on a downfall, unfortunately. And I think that comes with age. Like it's. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I also just all these videos of Trump in these meetings, and you just hear him shitting himself the entire time. Like,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't know how the people behind him, like, I would be like probably like gagging, or like I'd have to like excuse myself if that was happening.
legit, I could handle the pants shitting if he was actually a good president and had a good personality or some shit. But the fact that he's got the worst personality, is an awful president, and is still shitting himself, and MAGA is still kissing his ass, is just, I don't even know how to handle all of that.
I mean,
I,
it's
I
the
just
fact
don't.
that
I don't get it.
he's doing that, and MAGA's response to that was for them to wear diapers. Like, I mean, that's when you're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a fucking cult. Like, you can be
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's got a medical condition, like, so what? But to be like, we're gonna wear diapers in support of Trump, that's cool now. It's like, no, it's not cool. I mean, it's a medical condition, that sucks, but it's not cool.
It reminds me of Billy Madison, where Adam Sandler peed his pants because the kid
Mm-hmm.
peed his pants. And he's like, "You're not cool unless you pee your pants." That is
Exactly.
literally what is happening right now. Only this is a grown ass man, not a
Yep.
child. Uh, and it's not a good time when you have a cult running the country, hands down. I know that there was, you know, a time where, the left really, really looked up to Obama and put him on a pedestal for sure. But there was no Obama flags like flying around, and like merch of his. Well, there was the Hope thing,
Mhm.
uh,
But that was
but
more of like that was more of a
as a
that
post-Bush
wasn't a
era.
yeah. I mean that I think that was more of like this is like I can't even think well, I can't think of the word, but it wasn't about a person, it was just about an idea of like a hope of change, right? So, I can understand people flying the Make America Great Again, whatever. Initially, I can understand of being like we want to have whatever. What I can't understand is you can't watch Trump and support that. Like I don't know how anyone with common sense could actually look at that and be like, "Yep, that's the person that I want to run." Unless you have deep seated hatred for someone, whether you're racist or homophobic or transphobic or something, and that hatred just aligns and justifies the way you feel, I can't see how any common sense person could look at that and be like, "Yep, that's what I'm voting for."
Yeah, no. And Des and I were talking the other day how we just really wish we could have a president with morals. The bar is so low. We're like, we actually don't care anymore, left, right. We just want someone with morals, someone who actually will try to keep, the American people's best interests in mind. And whether that's left or right, that's a step up. Like, I even see people being like Massey for president 2028. And at this point, that would still be a step up because at least he still has some morals and has fought against a lot of, some of the things that Trump has done. He's very conservative, not my choice for sure. Like, not first choice. I,
Hmm.
I think he's from Kentucky. Of course, he's got some, like conservative values, but that at least at base level, he's like, he wants to release the Epstein files. He wants to, actually attack corruption and things like that. Um, but yeah, it's crazy how low the bar has become thanks to Trump being president. And the bar has been low for a while, which is why Joe Biden won. I don't think Joe Biden would have won against anyone else
Yeah.
but Trump at that point. And to be real, like I didn't want to vote for the guy.
Hmm.
Uh, he was definitely past the expiration date as far as running for president, and I was just like, "This is the best we've got." When
Hmm.
he won, I felt a sense of like relief in a sense because I felt like at least for the next 4 years, I won't have to worry about you know certain rights being stripped away, even though it isn't technically true, but you know, it wasn't a main mission of the president or the people, the administration. It might have been some states that were, still pulling down some rights. But now the whole administration, like their number one agenda it had trans people on it and just doing whatever they could to like keep, stripping down rights. Although, luckily there's been some unsuccessful attempts, but yeah, I think there was just a little bit of relief in that front. It was like, okay, at least this administration is not going to actively be trying to strip rights away from people. Whereas, like currently, it's like you're on edge every day, just checking what is happening. What are they trying to do now? Um, and I know, speaking of like the Supreme Court approved to be able to for states to ban trans women from competing in sports. I know that
Hmm.
just recently happened. So it's things like that. Uh, I'm sure there's going to be more to follow, but outside of just relief with Joe Biden, I wasn't like fuck yeah, we have Joe Biden as our president. It was basically like, all right, well, it's not Trump. That's
Yeah.
it. But yeah. I want someone to be excited about.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't had that in quite a long time. I think we get like little hints of hope of someone to be excited about, but then something happens last minute and someone else is, I know when Hillary ran, a lot of people were really hoping for Bernie. Um,
Yeah.
he was the big contender. Um, and it's weird too because he's more of a democratic socialist, and a lot of the reasons why he didn't go forward or wasn't the DNC pick was because of that whole aspect of like, they can't make these changes. It's not going to happen, right? And then you see Mamdani in New York, who they said the same stuff, and he's making those changes. And like now New York, who's had like a huge decrease in like their crime rate, their housing's getting better. Like, and this has just been a couple months, you know what I mean? So it sucks because it would be nice to see that progress happen nationwide. You know, it sucks when it's like, oh, it's in New York, and we're stuck here, and we've still got people who really don't give a shit about the people, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Like, I think the Democrats play it a little bit more safer, but a lot of them still get bought out. So it feels like no matter what, we're always just kind of left behind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think another thing that's been pretty eye opening, you know, somewhat recently is just feeling like both parties are bought and paid for, and neither care about the actual like American people. They're just protecting billionaires. And so on that aspect of things, it really doesn't matter who is in office, because people are still struggling. Um, can't, wages are not living wages and all that bullshit. Uh, but the thing that this is not completely related. So I don't know if you've noticed recently, the language is changing surrounding anyone who's more progressive that probably identifies as democratic socialists. Uh, Trump and his administration are just straight up calling them communists
Hmm.
to create more of a divide or try to like create a target,
Yeah.
because we know how they used to go after communists in the past, right? So they're trying to bring that back. And he's using that language specifically, even though democratic socialist is very different
Hmm.
than communist, right? But he's definitely banking on his base not actually knowing that, which he's very probably correct on that, because they think that the New York mayor is a communist. He's been calling him communist. The whole side has been calling him communists. And anyone who kind of leans that way, they're just straight up calling communists. But I think it's to get more people on board. And so it's like, even if there are good things that he is doing and that actually are helping people, people aren't going to see it because they're just going to see him as a communist, and he's going to take your money. You're not going to be able to live the American dream.
Hmm.
It's because he's a communist. And oof, yeah, it's interesting that I think because of midterms approaching, he has specifically been, either he personally chose it, but I honestly don't think he's smart enough. I think someone advised him to start using the word communist as a
Hmm.
way to not get people on board with those that side of politics. Um, will it work? I guess we'll find out. But also, I would be, they want to put communists in concentration camps, or so it's like, if you're labeled a communist, what does that allow them to do,
Hmm.
and how do they really define that? It's just some things that gets a little sketch, especially when they are more and more just like, what's the word for it? Uh, Supervising, watching you, like, they're watching your every move at this
Yeah.
point, you know?
Hmm.
They're creating lists, they're putting, y reporters or journalists on the White House website of ones that are speaking out against Trump or whatever,
Hmm.
and, like, basically, like, doxing people who are
Yeah.
not in agreement with this administration. And so it all just gets a little scary, a little dangerous. And I just never thought we would have a child as a president. But
Mhm.
here we are.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, going back to this, America 250, um, back in 2016, Congress created, it was a bipartisan, semi-quincentennial commission. And that was supposed to be planning this big party. Um, and then after Trump was reelected, the resources and attention shifted heavily to Freedom 250, which was his aligned group, not the commission that was started in 2016. House Democrats have recently reported and have accused Trump and Trump's allies of misleading donors, giving Freedom 250 banking info instead of America 250, and diverting federal funds and questionable fundraising. So there's been pay-to-play access, foreign donor concerns, and America 250, again, the original 2016 planned, was left underfunded. Only 25 million of expected amounts received, while Freedom 250 took the spotlight with private and public money. So I know that there is a call for an investigation into that. We'll see if anything happens with that. But, I think this is just another thing that we're talking about of, Trump uh, using what he can to boost his own financial bank accounts or his friends' bank accounts, his family's bank accounts. No, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's insane. I think the thing too is that he knows he's going to get away with it. Everything he does, I'm just like, he'll never be held accountable. What has he been held accountable for so far? When you have
I mean,
enough money,
I will say the one thing that did happen this last week that is a positive is that the Supreme Court did rule against him in the Jeannie Carroll case, and so he had been
oh yeah, I saw that.
he was trying to get out of paying Jeannie Carroll, and they sided with Jeannie Carroll, and so he does have to pay her, and um, unfortunately, we did lose some big stuff. One being there was a halt originally on his order banning transgender troops in the military. But that is now the Supreme Court let that go through. So that's a big loss. But, there's still a little hope. I would have thought that they would have let him get away with the Jeannie Carroll thing. So it's interesting that they didn't. I will say, though, he has been calling out the Supreme Court justices. So we might be getting to a point where like they're just kind of sick of it and they're going to start standing up to him. But I wouldn't
Yeah,
be
some of
surprised
them are
if,
very much in bed with him, I feel like. But I did also, yeah, I did see that the Save Act is dead. And then also birthright citizenship has stayed, uh, intact. I know he
yeah. So a
was
couple,
not
so a couple
happy
big
about that.
wins. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely think that's a plus. That is positive. I know MAGA was definitely not happy about the birthright citizenship one specifically, but it's just how do you even enforce that? How far back do you go? Like we were all from somewhere else at some point. So yeah, I know they're like trying to prevent people from just going on vacation and having babies in America, but like how many are really doing that? Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, trying to think of is there anything else that we missed there? I know you have to go though. Do you want to go into what we've been watching? Cool. What have you been watching?
We have been watching the latest season of what the first two seasons was called Interview with the Vampire. The third season is now The Vampire Lestat. So we've been watching that, which then made us get into one of the spin-off series, which was the Talamastra. So we finished that. There was only like 6 episodes. And then we watched another spin-off series called The Mayfair Witches. So we're almost done with the second season of that show, and then the third season's supposed to come out this year. So that's been pretty much what we've been watching, kind of binge watching nonstop. Last night for 4th of July, we watched, well, tried to watch, my wife watched, I watched the end, but we watched Independence Day. I just happened to
Nice.
like fall asleep after 5 minutes and then woke up like halfway through the movie and then watched the end of it. Um, but yeah, so that was our 4th of July movie that we
I
watched.
wish we could do that for like the whole Trump presidency. Like you just see the beginning and then you just fall asleep or get into a coma for the rest.
And
And
just
then
we'll
you
just
see
watch
the
the end.
end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Um, yeah. Are you sorry? Did I cut you off? Do you have more that
No,
you're
no.
watching?
That's been pretty much, I think that's pretty much been it that we've been watching.
Okay. We're still making our way through Stranger Things. We are finally on the last season. I think we've got like one or two episodes left. So closing it up, getting to the point where we're kind of figuring out what's going on. But I do have to say, I feel like I'm appreciating that we're probably going to get some closure here or tie
Hmm.
everything together. But the last season, like the CGI and all that, and the acting, like what happened? Because there's a lot of it that's pretty cringe.
Yeah, I think a big part too is, in the earlier seasons, these were kids, so their acting wasn't great, but you kind of let it go because they're kids, or it doesn't. But now they're all adults, and it's still kind of the same level of acting. So you're like, okay, like there was no growth in that really,
Right. Yeah.
I think also, I'm sure you haven't watched, there's a documentary of the Duffer Brothers making the final season. You guys, you should definitely watch that after you finish it. But a big aspect of that whole documentary is they started filming the show, they started filming the last season before they were even finished writing. So it definitely is something where you look back at it and you're like, oh, okay, like that was definitely, some stuff was definitely rushed and not as well thought out. Um, which I don't know if like the Duffer Brothers were doing any other projects or something. Um, because it feels like, Stranger Things like has been very like well thought out before and like very
Yeah.
well connected and like,
Hmm.
so the fact that this season like they didn't have the ending, they weren't even sure what was going to happen in the ending until they were actually filming the like last episode and they hadn't even written it yet. So it's like that kind of stuff where you're like, oh, that's probably why it didn't hit as well as it could have, and it's a kind of a bit of a disappointment. But I think like, at least me, like I enjoyed it. It wasn't something like, I've definitely seen shows where the finale or the last season was just total shit, and I think it is pretty good. Like it's something where you watch and you're like, okay, could they have done better? Yeah, but it's okay. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy that they were like basically creating the ending in real time. Which I could see that now for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Uh, I just want to know how many fucking years did it take to
Hmm.
create this last season, and they didn't have it written?
Yeah.
Like what's
We
going on
we
with
we
that?
finished the season and then we watched that documentary and my wife was furious. Just because it's like, how do you build up this thing? You've made us wait like 3-4 years for this season, and like this is how you treated it. Like no
Yeah,
wonder, So you'll have to watch that documentary after you finish it and let me know what you think because I'm
yeah.
interested.
I'll probably feel the same because
Yeah.
it's just like when you wait so long for something and it becomes this like Netflix classic. You get attached to the characters. It just really resonates. There's some
Hmm.
nostalgia to it. Uh, and then to just be waiting and waiting and being like, I cannot wait for the next season. and then to have this kind of weird rushed, like overly CGI
Mm-hmm.
overacting situation happening, like this isn't like Stranger Things. This is
Yeah.
like some lame show that I accidentally watched because it was the only thing left to watch, not something I've been waiting years to watch. So, there's already a disappointment in that. And also the same thing about they were kids in the beginning. So the acting, unfortunately, they didn't really like mature their acting
Mm-hmm.
skills. They just kind of kept it the same. But also, I noticed one of the big reasons might be that 11 hardly spoke, or she kind of spoke like a caveman for a while, and then this
Mm-hmm.
season she speaks completely normally, but it doesn't sound natural. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like she didn't really have to act through words. It was a lot of like physical acting
Mm-hmm.
previously, and now she's had like doing the talking part, and it's like, oh, she's not actually a great actor when she talks. um Dustin's pretty good. I feel like he's probably the better actor. Uh,
I would say Dustin and Sadie are probably the best, or Max. So Dustin and Max are probably the strongest of the kid actors.
yeah, I would agree.
Um,
Will
uh,
is not good.
yeah, Will is definitely not good. Mike's not very good.
He's like,
Lucas
okay,
Lucas is okay too. It just sucks too because like I think they've had characters on that have been really strong actors. Like I really thought the actor who played Billy, I thought he did a really good job, and I think
he did.
it would have been great for them to find a way. Like that's what people were guessing, was that he was gonna still be alive and come back in the final season. I think he would have been a great addition because he really did a great job acting. Um, I also think, a spotlight, Mike, Mike and Nancy's mom, her scene in the beginning of the season, she did really good. I was really impressed with that. But yeah, the kids just kind of fall short. I think also, I'm not gonna say too much because I can't remember how far it's in and I don't want to spoil, but we should have a recap session
Yeah,
after you finish.
we'll be done by next week for
Yeah.
sure. So yeah, I'll know all without getting any spoilers and stuff. But I can definitely see how people were disappointed. I saw things here and there on social media. I tried to scroll past it because I
Yeah.
didn't want spoilers. But I feel like the overall consensus was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. The
So
biggest, I think the biggest, for me is the last episode. I think they tried to end, like have everything have a good, not good, but like they had tried to tie all the ends, on the last episode. But I think they threw too much in for one episode. Like they should have just made it a longer season, and like actually had, um, deeper scripts, and they should have had the whole season planned out before they started filming. I think that's the biggest thing.
100%. Like,
Yeah.
who the fuck does that? There's actually how many times I've turned to Des and be like, what in the fucking Harry Potter is this? Like, I'm pretty sure Will, I'm like, you're a wizard, like he just turned into this wizard, but he's a sorcerer or whatever. But
Uh,
I was like, this is Harry Potter. Like, what? Um, but yeah, so we'll see. So that's all we've been really catching up on. Um, Besides, oh yeah, we've like I turn on documentaries to wind down and like go to sleep because it's intense, so you kind of need
mhm,
something else before you go to bed. Uh, so it's Worst Neighbor Ever. Is the latest Netflix documentary. That documentary series, and it's
mhm.
pretty crazy. Highly recommend. It is interesting. The whole like worst ex ever, worst neighbor ever. The series are really good. Some of the stories you're just like, what the fuck is wrong with people? So yeah, if you need something to fall asleep to,
I'll have to check that out.
yeah, it's pretty good. So I think that's it.
Well, we'll have to meet back up next week after you've watched the end of Stranger Things and
Yes.
get a catch up for sure.
Yep, most definitely. All right. Well, guess we'll wrap it up for now. I know, Calvin, you gotta go celebrate your mom's birthday and make the Peasley
Peasley
tacos, whatever.
tacos. Yep.
So, yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Please subscribe and thumbs up and share. If you,
Tell us what you did for 4th of July.
yeah, did you celebrate? Did you not? What are your thoughts on celebrating or not? Let us know in the comments. Love to hear from you. But until then, peace out, guys. We will see you next time.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.